Hi everyone, and today I'm going to be telling you about my favorite veteran and this blanket. So the day I'm recording this is Veterans Day, but you guys are going to be seeing this the day after I recorded this, but it's still in celebration of Veterans Day, and this year on Veterans Day is the first year that I'm here without my grandfather, who I called Grandy. And I'm sorry, I'm already starting to tear up because this is going to be a bit of an emotional video because it is about my grandpa who just passed away in April, but it's all for a chance to honor veterans and people like my grandpa who did fight for our country, and then, you know, as he got older, he had issues and passed away, unfortunately, due to those issues. So I'm sorry if you catch me crying. My grandpa meant and means the world to me. He was like my dad, and I couldn't be more grateful to have had him in my life. And I have so many good memories with him, and I'm so thankful that he was there in my life for the years that he was there. I'm going to try and hold it together. I'm so sorry. My grandpa, this past April in 2019, passed away from a rare genetic disease called Cartnegers syndrome. And basically, this causes a reduction in the number of little hairs around your body. I believe they're called cilia. Please don't at me if I'm wrong, but he did not have a lot of those in his lungs, so when he got infected with a respiratory virus or disease or whatever, those little hairs weren't there to help him move the mucus out of his lungs. So as he got older, obviously, when respiratory issues came up, it got worse and worse, and in August of 2018, he was sent to the VA hospital, which was about 30 minutes up the road from my mom and my grandmother at the time, and he was put on a ventilator. Now, at the time, he was still responsive. We were kind of freaking out because my brother was in Thailand. I was 2 to 3 hours away, and once I got the call that there were issues, I decided to leave work early and go home for the weekend so that I could be there with my mom and my Nana and my grandpa. And, you know, the VA kind of had a doctor who took us aside, and Jonathan was there. He took us aside into a room and basically told us that he doesn't think that there's any chance that my grandpa would get better. And he said the only other thing that they could do was to allow us to see if Wake Forest Baptist would have a room open to help try and figure out what was going on and see if they could help. So we decided, instead of, you know, letting him go into a hospice house that they had there, that we would go ahead and take him to Wake Forest. So we took him over to Wake Forest, and at the time I was traveling back and forth with Jonathan to be able to take my family to see him, and my mom and grandma would try as best they could to get rides to go see him. So when we got to Wake Forest, he was still on the ventilator. Everything seemed to be getting better and better and better, and we actually stayed in this amazing house, and I would recommend it if you have to be at Wake Forest Baptist for any reason. It's called SECU House, SECU, like the bank, State Employees Credit Union house. The rent to stay in there is either free or very, 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 very reduced. It's going to be way cheaper than even probably what you would pay a night for a motel. And it is in that area, so it's right up the road from the hospital, so you can get up there in the morning to see your patient, your loved one, before the doctor comes in, and you can stay informed fairly easily. The facilities are great. They always have activities and people coming in who serve meals to basically help you, you know, through this difficult time when you are waiting for your family member. And it is limited based on how urgent the situation is and how far you live away, but I don't think that they turn away too many people. It is a lot like a hotel room. Like, you go in and you have 2 beds, you have a nice bathroom, you have a TV, you have cable access, you have all of that. There's free Wi-Fi, there's a game room for kids, like I said, activities all throughout the week, but we didn't actually have any chance to do those. but it's a nice way to stay close to your loved one and try and like stay as positive as you can. But anyways, so we stayed there for 1 or 2 weekends. Like I said, I would come down and we would, try to be there. And it seemed like my grandpa was getting better. So I believe from that point, and like I said, I've been kind of everywhere. I believe at that point they had sent him to a nursing home / rehab center. And then he ended up back in the hospital several times in different hospitals. I think he went back to Wake at least one time, but then after that he went to some rehab facility in Charlotte, and then he would go to one of the Charlotte hospitals, and he would be back and forth there. And just when he seemed like he was getting better and, talking, being more active, doing the things he loved, it would just get worse and worse and worse. We were trying to give him his best chance, and we always asked him what he wanted, and he always kept wanting to fight until he just did not have the energy to even talk on his behalf anymore. And at that point, we were talking to the nurse, and she brought up hospice care, and there was obviously a lot of issues with money because hospice care can be really expensive and rehab facilities can be really expensive. But because my grandpa's a veteran, he actually ended up at the hospice house back where they said they could put him at the VA hospital in Salisbury. So we took him there, and I visited one weekend, and I would come down probably every weekend. And by that time, luckily, my brother was able to get home from Thailand and see my grandpa. The facilities were just really nice. The people were really nice. I never had any problems. My mom and grandma were pretty much staying up there 24/7. My brother would, take them back and forth, all that kind of stuff. During all of this, I had gotten stuff to make my grandpa a blanket because he loves these blankets. We've made tons of these blankets. They're no-sew blankets made of like fleece. I think that's what this is called. And he always used one at home. He's used one as long as I know. So I was like, I'm going to give him this because I'll make it for him and he'll be able to have it. And this is one of my biggest regrets because he was sick through Christmas and we did get to see him a lot, but because of all the traveling and the stuff I had to do at my job with like graduation and all that kind of stuff, it didn't get done. Like, I got a little bit of it done. It would travel back and forth with us, but it seemed like I never had a moment to sit down and finish it, which is no one's fault but mine. I wish that I had finished it and given it to him, but it just did not happen. I came down one weekend, and this is the hard part that's going to be hard. And I had come down one weekend because my mom had a meeting to go to, and all of that in and of itself is a huge testimony, but it's not my testimony. It's my mom's testimony. And I'm sorry, this is the part where I'm going to get a little bit emotional because my grandpa passed away that weekend, and I had come down because my grandma has dementia. She's not super far down in her dementia where she can't function, but sometimes she does some things that can risk her safety. And at the time, one day when my mom had left her and gone with my brother to pick up food for them, she had gone outside with no shoes on, and it was cold outside. And so they said, we don't, we're here to take care of the hospice patients. We can't take care of her too, so someone needs to stay with her. So my mom had a very important meeting to go to that would decide some things in her life. And so she needed my brother to take her, or me to take her, and so she asked me to just stay with my grandma and my grandpa. We were sitting there the night before my mom's meeting. She had gone home so that she could be well rested for the meeting, and my grandma and I were sitting on either side of my grandpa, and we were just kind of like talking with him. His eyes were open, and he would occasionally respond, and he hadn't eaten for days because he couldn't, because it would just increase the mucus, that he was experiencing. But we were sitting there and just kind of like talking with him, singing with him. I was drawing things. I drew a butterfly. And that's kind of my testimony from it all, is I drew a butterfly, and I said, you're my butterfly, Grandy. And he said, I think so. And that was like the last thing I think he said to me. We had his TV shows on that he liked, and we were just there with him all night. We went to sleep. Everything was fine in the morning. Everything seemed fine. And we were sitting there, my grandma and me, in the morning, and chatting and just talking. And we look over and he's not breathing anymore. And he had passed, and we called my mom, and they were trying to get back. And I live in a religious family, probably except for my brother. And we just decided, we stayed there for a little bit, and we decided that he's not in that body anymore, And so I was home a lot because that happened. I took a lot of time off of work, like a week, to help my family prepare, and I went back and tried, but I couldn't, and so I came back home, and we decided that we would have a memorial service for him instead of a funeral service for him at our church. We were driving, and all of a sudden this butterfly comes out. Like, I'm not driving slow, I'm not driving 30 miles an hour or anything, and I think I was actually on the highway, and a butterfly just passes in front of the car, and I lost it. It happened again when we were going, and it's always a monarch butterfly, like the regular looking butterflies. Butterflies have been big in my life as well. They were a centerpiece of my wedding. But anyway, even to this day, even now, it's getting colder, and I'll be driving and thinking about my grandpa, and I'll see a butterfly, and it'll just remind me of him. But after he passed away, I came home several months ago, and I said, I'm going to finish this blanket. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to finish the blanket. And I had different thoughts about what I was going to do with the blanket. I was like, I could keep it, which I did end up doing, or I could donate it. But then it got me realizing that, if someone has something that their loved one was covered with, in a hospice house, and they passed, they might not want to keep that. That might be hard for them to keep. But this was for my grandy, and so I keep it, and I'm reminded of him every time that I have it. My grandpa served in the United States Air Force. I believe he did cargo loading in the Air Force, and he loved the Air Force. He loved everything about the Air Force. Even as he got older, he always had an Air Force hat in the van that he drove, and he would pop it on when he would go outside, and he loved everything about the Air Force. He loved serving. He wished he could do more, but he was medically discharged from the Air Force. And I'm just thankful for his service and for everyone's service. And I do really, really feel passionate about veterans, because a lot of older veterans don't have anyone around for them anymore. And they come back and they're not very well cared for. And I currently live in a big military population with a lot of homeless veterans, and I would just encourage you that, especially over this season, if you can, take something to donate to a nursing home or to a VA home. But I'm so thankful for the prayers that were answered. I really didn't want him to suffer. I really didn't want there to be, like they prepare you with some stuff that says, certain things could happen. All of my memories of my grandpa are good. I can't remember anything that went left unsaid or undone, and I'm thankful for that, because a lot of people don't have that experience with their grandparents. I love him, and I'll always love him, and I can't wait to see him again. But I just wanted to tell you all this story. I'm sorry I'm crying like a baby. And I want to thank you if you have any veterans in your life or military service people in your life. I want to thank you for being strong in their life, because they're fighting for our country. And I want to thank veterans in particular, like my grandfather, who are, still alive, and those who have passed. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for your dedication to our country. And I love you all. So I'm sorry that I'm ending on a crying note. It is an emotional story for me, but I hope that you learn something from this. I hope that you have a newfound appreciation for the veterans or the military people in your life, and make sure you hold them tight, because you don't know what's going to happen. But I guess that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.